You're tuned in to BTS, Between the Sermons at Northwood Christian Church, where we gather for conversations with each other, answer your questions, and open the curtains to who we are beyond Sunday mornings. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to BTS.
Hello, church. Welcome to the third installment of BTS, Between the Sermons. You'll notice if you're looking that, again, there's been a change of players. There was some talk behind the scenes about Adam. He's not very nice to Pastor Scott. And so we're recording in the afternoon. Adam thinks that this is going to happen at 7 tonight. So, you know, he's going to maybe miss out on that. But we are excited to have replaced him with Jared. And so,
Jared.
Yay.
What's up, Jared?
So we're going to let Jared just begin by telling us a little bit about himself, ministry at Northwood, how long you've been here. I even want to hear what you love most about what you do and maybe even what you love least about what you do. And then I think the three of us will just take a moment to share an experience or two we've had with Jared. So Jared, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Barry. Well, I'm usually the one sitting back at the booth and setting all this up and getting things going because I'm the director of technology for those who have not gotten to meet me. I am married to my wonderful wife, Caitlin. We've been married since 2016. We live fairly close to the church, and we have a 1.5-year-old Ava, who is as much of a toddler as I want her to be, but she's going to keep being a cranky little thing whenever she wants to at the moment. So we're just carrying on at home between everything that's just going on. But I've been here similarly since 2016. So I got here at the very beginning of March in 2016, just started part-time as media supervisor. I was basically, my job was just anything booth and media related. It's since gone into a full-time position, so I'm the overarching director of technology. So I oversee some of the IT stuff and other media and audiovisual sort of things that happen along. A lot of what we've done really in the past year or two has expanded also our kind of communications, and this really being a part of that. Yeah. And so helping out in that avenue with our little communications team between me, Barb, who was in the last episode. If you haven't checked that out, definitely do so. And then Scott and Jill in the front office. So I'm just thoroughly impressed by the teams that I get to collaborate with here. And man, I would say I'll start off with kind of some of the worst parts of what I do is a lot of the misunderstanding, because technology just lends itself to that. Yes, it does. And then almost a little bit of due to the misunderstanding, a lot of loneliness and just kind of existing in my own bubble and not really a whole lot of natural collaboration. Because what I love to do is not just, learn how things work and make them work well, but I'm very much a creative. And so a lot of that, I really itch for that collaboration, that brainstorming, really making something really neat happen using technology. And so it isn't just, I would die sitting behind a desk for 8 hours a day. So it's really that creative process. I get to obviously work with Adam wherever he is with the music and that sort of thing. And that definitely itches that creativeness. But, even in designing things like for communications or stuff for the sermon series, has just been a lot of fun. Just diving into that sort of stuff alongside of people. Yeah. So that's just been great for me in my heart. And I guess that's
one of the things I really love, and there's a reason we do it that not everyone will understand, but I like our bumper video. The bumper video is the video that happens right before the sermon, and we started doing that when we went online, of course, because it allows us to do a transition. But I like that transition. I think you do a great job creating different bumper videos, and so that's one of the things I really appreciate. This isn't even the memorable moment, but it is one of the things you do just one of the many creative things you do that I appreciate. So.
One funny thing about the bumper videos is Jill's husband, Greg, even had mentioned, she shared in our communications team meeting that, they acknowledged it was a thing and, they were mostly online for quite a while. And it finally clicked with him almost the why behind we do it, because there's a lot of things and moving pieces on
Yeah.
stage that needs to happen between the worship set and the sermon starting. We have those plexiglass shields and those sorts of things. And so there's just that little bit of like, oh, I would have never known this had I not been in the room. So
Yes.
I guess let that be a plug too, that if you've been curious about getting back in the room, you catch things like that. There's definitely a different side of things that you notice. But
Surprising, there's a lot of reasons for what we do. I know it doesn't always look that way, but there is some reasons. Hey, let's each take a moment and just share what's a Jared moment or experience you've had that you would share.
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, not a specific moment, but moments that Jared creates in meetings. There's these moments of where, there's a lot of dialogue going on, and then all of a sudden, Jared will just bring something into clarity when he says something, and you're like, oh yeah, that's it. That's exactly what we've been trying to get at, and he's able to pinpoint it with some clarity and conversation. And so, being on the communication team together, you've definitely stepped in specific moments that I remember, and be like, this is it. This is what we're trying to get at here, and I really appreciate that about you,
John?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to hang out with Jared in some different situations, but I wanted to start by just sharing like my first experiences with Jared. So before like we really got to know each other and just trying to, figure each other out when you're, trying to get to know staff. And I had been used to just as a youth pastor, using whatever resources were available in the sanctuary whenever we needed them, because that was just the way that things were. Nobody really cared, and there wasn't necessarily someone like Jared who had all of the knowledge on how things should be used and the way they should be used or the way they shouldn't be used. And so here I am with like my working knowledge of some things, thinking I know way more than I actually do, and I just remember like coming in and out, like, using speakers for this thing or that thing. And I remember one time when I really understood, like, no, Jared knows what he's talking about. I really don't. And Jared is actually oversees all of this. And so I should probably ask them permission. When I use some speakers for something and you're like, yeah, you really shouldn't do that. And you had like the exact reason why I shouldn't do it. And it totally like went over my head, not understanding the technical language of it. But I knew like, you're like, don't mess up our stuff is essentially what you're saying without saying it. And I was like, okay, yeah, message loud and clear. I totally got it. But that out of the way, like I've just enjoyed times and we haven't had a whole lot recently. Especially once restaurants close down, just grabbing lunch together and chatting about life. But we get to take care of Jared's daughter, Ava. And so I say we, but that's mostly Val, my wife, who does that. I just get to play with Ava. And so just getting to know you through that way has just been so fun, just to watch you as a dad and to watch you play with Ava and just the joy that you get out of that relationship and how much you love her. Like that's
at least as much as you see.
Yeah, no, I know how it goes. I know how it goes.
You have three, so
been through that.
You've kind of know the divots of that.
Yeah, but that's a cool opportunity.
So again, meeting Jared early on, one of the things I began to learn about Jared, and I think there's a couple of reasons for it, but we would see each other first thing Sunday morning, and it's early. And I don't think Jared's the biggest early morning person, but he's also got a list of things he's trying to get done. And I would try to have this conversation, and it'd be like, okay, well, this isn't really going real well. And we've just found other ways to connect, but I've just discovered, 6:30 Sunday morning is not the time.
Not prime conversation time.
Not prime time conversation time.
Yeah, you've got two things to really take care of: greeting people and preaching.
And I'm trying to greet you, and it's not going down.
There's a whole lot more plates I'm trying to juggle come Sunday morning. So
Absolutely.
don't take that personally. honestly. Also, if you ever meet me on a Sunday morning, if I come across as standoffish, much like he's saying, it's like, that's not me. That is production. We have work to do, me. So
Yeah, no, I get it. The other thing that's just kind of a funny thing that's just recently happened is, of course, we called Jared. You know, if I'm having a computer issue, I don't understand something on my cell phone, I reach out to Jared, and he always is there, always willing to help. And I was reading an article the other day on how to clear your inbox with emails. And I have probably 80, they're read, but 80 inbox emails. Does that make sense? I've read them, but I've saved them, haven't done something with it, or it's like, oh, this is a good story. I want to use it for a sermon. And we can't figure it out, but I called Jared in because for whatever reason, my computer has just erased them all. And so they're gone. And so Jared's currently working on this problem for me. But I got an email about how to clear your email box, and I've done it. just like that, I did it. But of course, if you sent me something and I haven't responded, it's because it's gone, and I no longer remember what I'm supposed to be doing.
So how long do you get to use that excuse for?
For quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But how I connect that truly with Jared is that it's that kind of stuff. You having problems with email, you reach out to Jared. Having problems with connecting, I'm reaching out to Jared all the time. And he's very gracious to help someone that's so incompetent on those kinds of topics. So
We'll let you talk about yourself that way.
yes, please don't you guys say that.
I didn't nod. Don't worry.
You want to say anything about experiences with staff or anything, Jared, before we got something else we want to do here?
I guess I'm just excited for us continuing to be creative and doing things like this. I'm just so glad that it's been received so far so well by you guys out in our community, and let's collaborate more. What things are you guys kind of looking for that I can help be creative in, and whether or not it involves pastoral staff or not, even if it's just a mini series on teasing Adam.
Yes,
give us some ideas in the comments.
Do it. I'm down.
But yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
Move on. You guys are obviously plenty kind. If you don't mind, I could actually lead this next part.
Okay, Jared, you run with it.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of bridge into the more conversation side of the show with a little bit of would you rather. So would you rather be too hot or too cold?
Too cold. Yep. I have no reason except I don't like to be too hot. So I think one of the things I love when it's cold outside, but you're like when you're sleeping. I like when it's cold in the room, but you get snuggled up in the blanket. And so I got to go with too cold for that reason.
Yeah, similar for me. It's like I could put more layers on. There's only so much that you can take off that's socially acceptable.
That's good.
Sure. Thank you.
Good insight.
Yes.
It's true. I think for the most part, I've always felt that way, that like I would rather be too cold. But man, watching baseball games or soccer games in the fall when it's cold and like you just get that chill to the bone and like you can't shake it. And I'd take forever to warm up.
Yes.
So I don't know. I think I'm going sunshine and sweat. Let's just do that, and sunburns all the way.
So I'm the oldest one here. I'm just going to tell you it gets worse.
Sweet.
I mean, I've heard the rationale that it's better to be too cold because you can always add layers and you just can't do too much when you're too hot. But it takes a lot for me to get too warm. I love warm weather. I love, and I'm cold all the time. You shake my hands almost any time. Right now, my hands are cold. It's unbelievable.
Mine too.
I am old and poor circulation, so just give me the warm weather, man.
Well, I guess that's one thing for me too, is like with my complexion and my redheadedness.
Yes.
Too hot and sunburns, it just destroy me. So I'm fine with a little bit of cold for a couple of hours as opposed to a sunburn I'm nursing for a week.
That makes sense.
All right, and then the next one, would you rather give up coffee or soda for the rest of your life?
Soda, hands down. I don't even really enjoy it that much anymore.
I'm in the same boat. I habitually drink coffee pretty much every morning and sometimes a nice afternoon cup, but I haven't really drank soda in a while. It just makes me burp too much. It's just uncomfortable for me now.
Coffee all the way. So
Scott says he can give up coffee.
oh no, wait.
Yes. Let's answer.
To give it up for the rest of your life.
Too late. It's gone.
Nope. I would give up soda for sure. I'd rather give up soda. I'm addicted to coffee. Like headaches, if I don't have it in a couple of days, that's how bad it is. So
That's true. Send your Dutch Bros gift cards to Northwood Christian
a
Church,
problem.
care of Scott Chase.
I guess I'm on a little. I'm off of it right now.
You're
I
off
took
of
I'm
a
his
break.
accountability
Send 'em
partner,
in.
so
Then
send
just
him to me.
send 'em in.
So I'll take the fall for Scott. I'll protect him.
Definitely addicted. Yep.
So what's funny is I probably, if not even all that long ago, probably would have answered different, but I now addicted to coffee as well. I blame Michelle. I never drank coffee, and Michelle drinks coffee a lot. Her family drinks coffee 24/7. If you were to ask her, would you believe there'd be a day Barry would spend $4 to $5 on a coffee drink? She would have said, there is no way. When the boys were growing up, if we went to a restaurant, I wouldn't let them spend $1 on a soda. For me to spend $4 or $5 on a coffee drink, this is what Michelle does when I say, hey, you want to go get a coffee drink? She goes, referring to the fact that
Put the IV in your.
put the IV in, I've got a little bit of addiction. So anyways, that was a long answer.
All good.
Yeah.
John, I'm actually curious. How would the youth generally answer this? Are youth nowadays coffee drinkers?
I think more students in our youth ministry would give up soda before they give up coffee.
That's definitely changed since my time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, well, I guess if you ask middle schoolers, they'd be like, no way, because the Mountain Dew all the way.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is definitely that high school switch.
High school.
bit.
Yep. I'm surprised. Like, I didn't start drinking coffee until I was 30 when I had a kid.
It was the church coffee back in the day that got me. So I was probably one of those high school flipping over sort of things. Anywho, and the last one, would you rather go hiking or lay by the pool? I mean, for me, it's back to that sunburn thing. Why would I lay by the pool if I'm just going to be a crispy chicken nugget by the end of the session? So I'm good for hiking. I'll break a sweat for that one. Those hikes and those views and some of those cool mountain paths that are around our area are pretty darn nice.
Yeah, I'm going to say hiking. I love hiking. Can't wait to hike the South Sister. We're supposed to before the fires last year. So we weren't able to. Laying by the pool these days, it provides me with about 2 minutes of peace and quiet before my kids find out that I'm laying by the pool or in the pool, and then it's over. I might as well go inside because it's not fun anymore.
Relaxing.
No, not relaxing whatsoever.
Yeah, I definitely would rather go hiking for sure. Speaking of South Sister, I've actually I've been consecutively hiking South Sister each year at least once, almost for 17 years now. So every year I've made sure and hike South Sister. So it's been become a regular thing, and I just love it.
You should lead a staff for those that want to go.
Yeah,
on the staff.
All right, sounds good.
Because I'm hands down a hiker too, mostly because I can't sit still. I mean, I just can't. I always think sitting by a pool would be awesome, and I'm good for 20 minutes, and I'm like, okay, what are we gonna do now? And
Gotta move
Michelle's
around,
just
yeah.
warming up. So,
So how do your Cabo trips usually look like when you're out on
Michelle
vacation?
lays by the pool, and I go out. I go for a hike. That's it. We
Just sipping your little umbrella drink somewhere?
see you later. Yeah, no, I don't sit by a pool well at all. I'm not. Sounds good, but I don't do it.
Man, okay, I guess note to myself, I got to pick better would you rather questions. We answered fairly unanimously there.
Yeah, we were pretty same. Yeah. So, am I doing? Okay, I'll jump in and ask some of the questions that have come from people in our church. By the way, thank you, church, for the questions you ask. We've got some others we're saving, but always appreciate the questions that you ask, and it's fun for us to wrestle with them.
I
So,
loved how thoughtful people have really been with the questions.
Yeah,
and
there's great
added some
questions.
humor as well. So we
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, I love this question from Shauna. What for you is the most surprising thing Jesus did, and what have you learned from it? What is the most surprising thing Jesus did, maybe even said, and what have you learned from it?
Yeah, I think one of the most surprising things that Jesus did, and he entered into Jerusalem, on the week of before going to the cross, and he goes into the temple, right, and he turns over the tables, and for me, I think it was just surprising at him expressing the anger, and the anger was against what we would say the religious system, right, of the day. And it was because they were selling and using the temple of God for the wrong reasons, for their personal gain, and they were manipulating and abusing the system that God had set forth for them for his worship. And the house of prayer, but you're making it a den of robbers. And for me, just seeing Jesus in a way, obviously Jesus is sinless, and expressing anger in a way that's okay and healthy.
Yes.
I think I have a lot to learn in that way. How do I express emotion towards the things that I have deep held feelings about?
Yeah.
And I think that anger's from, that righteous anger from God, because I see the evil that's going on, when this is going on or that situation is happening. And so for me, I think surprising in that way, it just takes you back. You're like, oh, okay, Jesus just flipped over tables. He's clearing. He's got the whip going, and he's cleaning house. But it's for the worship of God in that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would say one thing for me isn't necessarily from his adult ministry, but when he was a child and mom's looking for him, and he's just hanging out in the temple with the teachers.
Yeah.
And what kid in their right mind would hang out at school after hours? And just how thirsty he was to, again, just learn about, really what people were doing with his father's word and teaching and that sort of stuff. It just boggles my mind compared to what we're so used to seeing and, how I grew up. It just, there's a thirst that I think is still sometimes lacking for the right things. And that forsaking certain things such as, Mom, I don't really care if you want me to follow you right now. This is where my father wants me. And just recognizing what some of those things are in my life that, I might need to definitely put to the side and focus on, what isn't the norm. It's definitely not a kid hanging out at school after hours or that sort of thing. Right. But what's that thing that my Heavenly Father has called me to that's, I might not even have any idea of how to step into that, and just figuring that out along the way. But yeah, it's just, aside from the deeper spiritual implications, just that, little boy Jesus hanging out in the temple is also just pretty surprising in general.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that have surprised me about Jesus over the years. The more I study, sometimes I feel less surprising because I anticipate how Jesus might respond. But I'm always taken aback when he does something, like performs a miracle, heals somebody, and then is like, hey, don't tell anybody about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether it's someone in the Jewish community or a Gentile, somebody outside of the community. Like one of the craziest stories for me in the Bible is when Jesus heals the demon-possessed man. They call him the Gerasene demoniac. There's an old school term for you. And they cast out the demon, right? A legion of demons into the pigs, and then the pigs run off the cliff and die. That's one of my favorites, and I could talk about that one for a while. There may even be a sermon archived from a long time ago. It's probably not very good. It's probably not very good. I should probably rewrite it now. I've learned a few things since then.
I haven't watched The Chosen yet. Has that been in the series yet?
I'm not far enough along, so no, not at this point.
So I guess if anybody has seen it, let me know what episode. I'm curious to see how they visualize it. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah,
It'd be crazy.
But for Jesus to recognize that like his time hadn't come yet, knowing that something was coming, but and also understanding that if too many people find out too quickly, which ultimately they do, like he knows what the result will be.
Yeah.
He knows how it might inhibit his ministry. And he's really trying to reach his people that he has come from. And it's just surprising to me because if it flies in the face of the way we do things today.
Yes.
We want to get the word out to as many people as possible because that's what we think is influence. Is as many people need to hear my message and know about what I'm doing as possible. And so it just reminds me that sometimes you need to just let what you do speak for itself rather than find some ways to promote what you're doing. Because I've had instances where, and even recently, and personally I get embarrassed by it, that like I've talked up something I'm going to do and then, I changed my mind. And then it's like, oh, okay. And, I don't want to be that kind of person. There's a whole bunch of other theological, like prophetic reasons why Jesus told people not to say anything. But I think it's just a real good example for us about what real influence looks like. And it's really about actions speaking for themselves.
That's really good.
He's over here preaching one. It's called Between the Sermons.
Laying down the
What can I
truth.
say? Yeah. What can I say?
So, Jared, you mentioned The Chosen, and we were watching an episode the other night, and I thought they did this remarkable job of just showing how hard the other disciples had with Matthew as a tax collector. He did such a beautiful job of showing just their frustration that he was even a part of the group and how much they despised who he was and what he represented. And I'm watching this and it was just so powerful. And by the way, that whole episode is unbelievable. The way it ends, you just got to, I think it's the third episode this year, season 2. But I guess one of the things that would surprise me about Jesus is who he chooses to be his followers and the ones he chooses to do his work. It's people that you would least expect. And I promise you I'm one of those. I'm one of those that you would least expect. And that is so surprising about Jesus to me. Yeah.
That's really good.
Marcy asked this question. How old were you when you accepted Jesus as Lord and Savior? Hopefully you've done it. And was it a gradual move into becoming a Christian, or was it a lightning bolt moment? Who wants to jump on that one?
I can start. For me, it's about as vanilla gets. As a just the oldest kid, mom and dad taking me to church ever since growing up and such, and going through the Sunday school and youth group and all that stuff and just learning. I didn't have like a huge thirst to learn more, but I understood it. I took it in, and over time it just kind of sunk into the point of like, I kind of want to be baptized. And so that happened, I believe, later in middle school. For me, I got baptized in front of the church there up in Estacada where I grew up. And it's just kind of been a steady track of, okay, just keep on learning a little more, just being faithful in it, and just little step and little step. So there's never really been like massive leaps in my faith. It's just kind of, I've always had my little bubble of community and accountability enough to just continue to stay on that path. And so it's not super interesting, but that's where I was.
A healthy way to go, though. Yeah. John, how about you?
Well, I grew up in churches that maybe in some ways overemphasize those lightning bolt moments and the kind of just like big outward expressions of faith. And that was really attractive to my family. Before I was born, they had left the Catholic Church and started attending a Foursquare church and the pastor has some notoriety in the Christian world in the 80s, Jack Hayford, Church on the Way in Southern California. And I remember, so I grew up in church, grew up quoting scripture. I have a video of me like, shouting out the prompts of creation on my couch. It's good times. I think I was even wearing a cape, because that's how I imagined God would do it, with a cape on. And but I remember when like something actually clicked, and I had a desire to be like Jesus. I'm about 7 years old, and I'm at this crusade type event featuring, and this group was really popular in the 80s, the Power Team.
Oh, yeah.
Which was, if you don't know what the Power Team is, Google the Power Team. They're awesome. Don't settle for any imitations of the Power Team. But it's a group of guys who were just really strong, right? They'd be in the strongman competitions today. And they came from different walks of life, some of them ex-athletes, but just really strong. And they would travel around the country and the world performing these feats of strength and sharing the gospel, inviting people into a relationship with Jesus. And I was in awe. I mean, I grew up on the World Wrestling Federation and Hulk Hogan and those guys. And so I just wanted to be like the guys on the Power Team, and they were trying to be like Jesus. So I'm like, okay, that must be what it means to be like Jesus. I want to be all in on that. And so they had an altar call, and there was no prompting from anybody in my family. I was attracted to the glitz and the glam of that, but I absolutely think that the Holy Spirit used that to draw me in. Nice. And that's the first time I remember saying, yes, I want to be in a relationship with Jesus. I want to trust Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And then I think since then, there's been some really cool moments, but a lot of it has been kind of what Jared described, just a lot of gradual movement of kind of God just drawing me into a relationship.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, for me, 16 years old, definitely didn't have really a large context for church or for God. I remember my aunt and uncle taking me to Sunday school, maybe fourth grade or so. And 16, really down a path of destruction and in my life. And I don't know if I'd call it a lightning bolt moment, but it was a very turning point of I was going one way, in the high school, partying and drinking and drugs, and then saying, okay, well, as I went down that path, depression, anxiety filled me, and came to remember a moment of time. I just remember after partying, just like okay, well, I got two choices. Either I can try God or I'm done. And I remember waking up on a Sunday morning after I was 16. I had my my license and car and everything, and I should have been like hungover totally. And the Lord just woke me up that morning and said, hey, you said you'd try me, so go to church. And I remember driving myself to the country church that I'd gone to as a kid for Sunday school. And it was that morning I heard about new life in Christ and this new life of resurrection. And that morning gave my life to Christ.
Wow.
So as far as like becoming a Christian and learning, there was time, between that decision and, getting rid of some of that destructive habits in my life and leaving that old life. But I just wanted everything to do with Jesus after that, even to the point. So I'm 16, and even to the point, so I'm attending all these church meetings and everything, youth group. I attended a board meeting as a 16-year-old kid because
they serious. Wow.
I was serious. Right. Yeah. I made it through halfway. They took a break halfway, and
I usually make it through about halfway.
They gave me an out though. You have to be there. And I attended a board meeting because they said it was open to, the church. Yeah. And I think that just kind of showed where I was at. I wanted nothing to do with the old life and everything to do with the new life.
Yeah. When I was real young, my mom would take my sister and I to an Episcopal church, but it was real young. And then I wasn't aware of it at the time, but my mom was really struggling with cancer, so we didn't go to church much at all. And then my mom died when I was 10, and my life was kind of just a challenge because it was just one challenge after another, quite a few moves, and church was nowhere a part of my life in any way. I actually lived with 3 different aunts and uncles and a grandmother in a span of several years, including living with some friends for a while. And but finally, when I was 16, I moved in with some cousins. They're 7 years older than me. They got home from their honeymoon, and really, I'm basically on the front porch waiting for them. And I was like their wedding gift, and that's like the gift that never quit giving. And they said, "Hey, we go to church, so we'd love for you to go." I don't remember it being like you have to go. It's just we go. We'd love for you to go, and so I just started going to church, and because I'd moved so much, and because so much of my life was really painful, I withdrawn, I was quiet, I was real shy. It was kind of my nature anyways, but the church was a place I felt loved and accepted. And by the way, you'll hear that, right? And a lot of times I'm talking about, you're valued. It comes from just feeling devalued and unloved in some ways. Not because I had some cool people around me, but just so much hurt and brokenness. And the church was this place I felt loved and accepted, and it just felt awesome. And so I began to explore more and more. I was baptized shortly after that, again, not fully understanding what it meant, but grateful for being welcomed into a family. Really, my life's never been the same since. So it was quite a process, but one I'm grateful for. So
It's awesome.
Okay, a couple more questions. We kind of thought we might do 3. I'm thinking we're going to do 2 just because of our time. That's great. And we'll come back. We've got some other good questions that we'll come back to. I like this one, so we're going to go a little serious and then maybe a little bit more lighthearted. All right? So you guys are good? Good.
Stick with us.
Okay. What and how did you overcome severe doubt in your faith? I remember one of the questions early on. What don't you think? I don't remember. It was a question though. You and I answered. What would surprise you maybe about us is that we struggle with doubt just like everyone else. Pastors aren't exempt from that. So this question has to do with what's a moment where you did struggle with doubt, and how did you come through that? Who wants to begin with that one?
Well, whenever I share, there's always backstory. So here's the quick backstory. I grew up in the church, like I talked about, and then for high school, I went to a Christian school. Went to a Christian high school, which was great in so many ways. Was amazing. The one downside, which I didn't realize till later, and also kind of the churches I grew up in, was this idea that if you're doubting your faith, you're losing your faith.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
So that's what I always felt like doubting was. So as a late teen and even into college, I struggle with this idea that I might be losing my faith.
Yes.
And plenty of people affirmed that perspective. And so it wasn't until just learning from other people, being around other people who were okay with doubt, and actually helped me to see that, no, doubt is actually part of the process of affirming or confirming your faith. It's just part of your faith development. And so, I've had all kinds of doubts. I don't know that I've had like a major crisis, but when you're taught a certain thing in church, and then you hear somebody else who's like, actually, the Bible kind of came together this way. And you're like, wait a second. That flies in the face of everything else I've been taught. You're telling me most people actually think this? So those are moments that have shaken things a little bit. And I think because I've approached doubt as something that is positive and inevitable. If you're really seeking the Lord, and studying and trying to learn, I think doubt is inevitable. And so because I have that perspective, I think my foundation has never been shaken to the point where I'm like, you know what? I got to walk away from this. Because I know people who have. I know people who are like, you know what? I just don't even want to identify as a Christian anymore.
Yes.
And they have a whole lot of reasons, and some of them are actually good reasons. But I continue to choose Jesus because no matter the doubts that I have, there's been enough consistency in my life
Yes.
of seeing God's goodness and faithfulness that I can choose to trust him, even when I'm doubting something that I used to believe that was embedded in me, or I'm changing my mind. Like I can change my mind about something I believe because I doubt what I used to believe, and it's okay, and I'm okay, and I'm not losing my faith.
Yeah. Good. Good.
Yeah, it just makes me think of, for any of us, like how much did we think we had our future spouses figured out early on in our relationship? And that just kind of
Early on in the
relationship. Continually. I mean, obviously you guys have been with your significant others longer than I have, but just it's that continual deconstruction and reconstruction of something better. It's just what you said made me think of. So I just appreciate that word. For me, the doubt comes more out of times of my life where it felt more I was in preservation mode, that it felt, caught in kind of that silence, it feels like. Particularly when I was growing up, it was probably early high schoolish, that my mom was just dealing with chronic neck pain and migraines and was basically either bedridden because she had gone too hard or bedridden because of the pain medication. My dad was being overworked, and basically he got home from work, but then he had to work from home, and there was just an absence of really a parental and loving figure at that time. And then I have my two younger brothers, and so just as older siblings tend to do is try to almost pick up that mantle of a parental role yourself, and you're just not designed to do that, and just in part putting on a heavier burden, and just it felt like because I'm trying to hold things together again in a way that wasn't healthy, I was trying to be like, okay, now what's holding me together? And just kind of that classic cycle of how can God allow this? Where is this strength and this peace that he promises? I'm trying to communicate with you, but man, nothing's getting better. I don't feel any difference in my heart. I don't feel this strength or peace. My mom's condition isn't improving. My dad's condition isn't improving, et cetera. So just feeling like it's just kind of stuck in that pit. But man, really, it is just faithfulness through those seasons and keeping that dialogue open with God, because he wants to hear from you. He wants to hear your prayers. He wants you to continue to thrive in that community and be vulnerable with the right people. Lord knows that it would have looked a little different if my vulnerability was with my parents and just kind of transparency in that avenue. But thankfully, I had a good few role models at the church, and even a teacher at the school that he really did use other people in my life to kind of hold me together a little bit more and just be like, man, the faith really is something. Because again, I wasn't the only one in perseverance.
That word.
Trying to get that word carrying on, but my whole family was. My mom was in that mode. My dad was in that mode. Like we had nothing left in our tanks to really feel rooted and foundational and heavy. So still seeing that model of, man, this is what a life of Christ looks like, and that there is another side, and you keep pushing through it, and there is good fruit to come out of it, even though I might not see it in my own self or with my parents' situation or whatever situations that we continue to see since that point. There is hope. There is that faithfulness. There is that reward, even if we don't see it on this side of heaven.
Yeah. You want to go, Scott?
Yeah, I think I mean, there's definitely been some moments in my life just where doubt has creeped in, specifically around lies I believed growing up. And I think one of the lies that I believed growing up, that I really had as a core belief, as a foundational belief, was that I'm unlovable. And so a lot of it had to do with like, why put myself out there? Why even try? Why this person's not going to love me? Why, be vulnerable? Why be in this relationship? And then coming to know Jesus at 16 and then carrying that lie, it definitely was not until my second year of seminary that God just cleaned house in my heart of saying, are you going to continue believing this lie that you're unlovable? Wow. Or are you going to finally believe at the heart level that I'm the God of love who loves you and gave up my life for you? And carrying that doubt and then God speaking so clearly in that moment in that year of my life has definitely solidified me turning away from that doubt, or it really formed and shaped me in the inner level. I just want to just acknowledge that we have an enemy, in this world, and Satan goes and tries to kill and destroy and wants nothing good of the kingdom of God in our lives. And so, whether you're experiencing doubt now or you experience doubt later on, there's this element that doubt does exist because we have an enemy that fights against that spiritual battle against us and against God. And I love what you said, how you set it out, legitimizing doubt. And when the Lord shows up and letting him show up in the doubt, he brings clarity. And when there's doubt and we give it over to him,
Yes.
he will provide. Might not be the answer we're looking for, but he'll show up, and he always promises that. So just want to highlight that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Boy, I would say, had my share of doubts as well. One that just kind of comes to my mind is one that's, probably about 4 years old, and just an incredible couple in our church. It was a Wednesday night. I remember it very well. They came into my office. The wife was having surgery the next day. We prayed in my office. It was, I think you guys will get what I say. Sometimes when you pray, you just feel this empowering of the Holy Spirit. And it was one of those moments. I just thought, wow, that was moving. That was powerful. And just that sense of confidence. This is great. This is God's good. And just out of nowhere, there were some complications, and the spouse died in surgery the next day. And none of us saw this coming. And it really rattled my faith. It was like, boy, I just did not see that coming. And it wasn't that I was ever considering giving up on God. I don't know anything else, but it was just trying to process and understand, and the grief that I felt as well was certainly a part of that. For me, kind of the answer came, and I've shared it with the staff, but and I think even a sermon, but was several years later, in the middle of the night, I just felt like God gave me this line that, here's the line, is that sometimes we'll say, God's got this. And for me, God changed that from God's got this to God's got the person. So God, if I say God's got this, that means I think God's going to make this situation work out just like I think. And that isn't the case. But when I say God's got Barry, then that means regardless of what the situation happens, God's got me. That's good. And so with this spouse, God's got the spouse. And that's really been helpful to me. Just that process of saying, God has got the person, cares about the person, loves the person. There are circumstances that will happen that I can't fully understand or explain, but I do believe God's got us right where he wants us. So that was helpful.
One of the things that I heard from a pastor, he said, I don't have all the answers. When tragedy strikes, when crisis happens, I don't have all the answers, but let's seek the Lord together in this.
Yes.
And a lot of times, as pastors, people look to us as having the answers, right?
Yeah.
And there's this temptation to just give what we think why, or put a Bible verse on it and say this. And in fact, maybe the best thing it is to do is to say, let's just cry together.
Yes.
And let's seek the Lord together in this. And it's very powerful.
I was actually talking about that in youth group last night. We're talking about coping and like how do we handle things in life.
Yeah.
And man, we had to open up the book of Lamentations, which I don't think gets opened up enough.
No.
But possibly, most likely it's written by the prophet Jeremiah and just his own suffering.
Yes.
And the suffering that he sees among God's people.
Yes.
And he says things like, I will never forget how bad this feels.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm always going to trust in God's faithfulness.
Yes.
Or not even but and.
Yes.
Because one doesn't get rid of the other. And I think that's what you guys are saying. That's what's key. Like, and that's how you walk through something, is to lament, put it out there, but then name the hope that you have.
Yeah.
Identify that and hold on to it. Because, man, if you don't have that, I don't know how you get through anything.
And potentially be careful of the person that does have all the answers.
Yes.
Right? Because I think there's, you got to be careful of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Good stuff. Okay, we're going to end with this question today. I think this is a fun one. If you weren't in ministry, what would you be doing? If you weren't in ministry, what would you be doing?
I think I'll go for this one first. Just with, as I even stated at the beginning of this, I'm very techie and love figuring that out, but I have very much that creative itch. I didn't really even anticipate getting into ministry or being involved in a church for this long. That really Northwood as a place to work was just one of the early opportunities for me to do some of what I studied out of college. I first started working here. It was a year after I was out of college. I graduated from now Bushnell University. I worked at Simply Mac, the Apple specialist that was over in the Valley River Center.
You're an Apple genius? No. Is that what it was called?
That's what his name tag said. No. Apple genius.
I was a technician there, but anyway, I worked on a lot of phones. I'll just leave it at that. But as far as continuing to just look at creativity within the technical space and just my love for music, I was thinking, how can I keep that going? And locally, I was thinking, maybe I could potentially look at jobs over at the Holt Center or some other performing arts center, or over at Wow Hall or those sorts of things. But man, I just know that Oregon is just a dry spot on this country for just music culture in general. So I know that would have been long and difficult to do, but I was thoroughly surprised when I got plugged in over here and just enjoyed. Obviously, I knew I was going to enjoy more of the production side of what makes like a worship service things happen.
Yeah.
But really just figuring out and finding my sweet spot and being a part of the team. Looking back at it, I don't know how much I would thoroughly enjoy, just working shows and doing that sort of thing. I definitely knew I was not suited to ever be a touring tech guy and be on the road. I am a homebody through and through, and I knew that. So that's where I knew I was like, man, just knowing myself, it's going to be creative finding something to do. So, the Lord's blessed me thoroughly with here at Northwood.
Awesome. John, what would you do?
It's a toss-up between like circus ringmaster and ventriloquist. No, I'd be terrible at both of those. I think, man, if I wasn't working, it's definitely changed over the years, but at this point in my life, and I would own the best food truck in town.
I can see that.
Yeah, and I'd be making sure that all of you guys would be overweight from just eating all of my good food all the time.
Tacos and things like that.
Oh, are you kidding me? That's my love language right there, Scott.
That's good.
Yes, bring on the tacos. I can turn anything into a taco, by the way. Anything.
Why don't you do next staff lunch? Why don't you do it?
Yeah.
Dang it. This is how it works. You say something and then you just get voluntold to do. Okay.
This is going online, man. So
yeah,
we'll see if your job is still youth pastor in the next month.
I support tacos. Yeah.
I'm way in favor of John taking on a lunch. I love it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've had the privilege, honor of having a lot of different kind of jobs in my life, and at times 2 or 3 jobs.
When you came to us, didn't you have 4 jobs?
At one point, I had 4 jobs.
Nice. Yes.
Uh-huh.
If one's good, 4 is really good.
My wife said I like 1 job Scott a lot better than 4 job Scott. I agree with her. A lot more capacity in thinking, for sure. What would I be doing if I wasn't involved in ministry? I think I'd be involved with construction or contractors work or something outdoors. So, I mean, working with lamelane or something related to activities and outdoors. That's
Yeah, and you just did a whole bunch of work on your house too, right? So you've, other than your house, do you have other construction type of stuff you've been involved in?
Yeah, I mean, my dad's a contractor, so I grew up, around there. And then I grew up on a farm as well. So you're always fixing something. You're always putting stuff together. And started working at 9 years old. I remember Grandpa and we were setting pipe out in the field, in the crops and stuff. And so I started early, yeah.
I just mentioned that because there was a good handful of months that during staff prayer time, he was usually asking for prayer with things concerning his house remodel.
Well, if you get into remodels and you ever done something like that and you're like, oh, no, I just want to do this. And then you get into it and you find out, and then the house is from 1948. So it's really old. And it was a lot more work, a lot of structural work that had to go into the second floor.
So true.
That's why I needed prayer.
So I kind of got a funny story about this. You all know Butch Blyer in our church. Butch can fix anything. In my mind, he can do almost anything, but he is just like a wonder at everything. And so it's not uncommon. I'll be working on a project and I'm struggling with it. And it'll be something silly, simple. Anyone could do, not me. And so I'm always calling Butch. And Butch, I called him just the other day because I was trying to get a screw out and it was stripped and I could not get it out. And I said, Butch is going to know how to get this out. And I call him, I kid you not, what's wrong now? That's how he answered because he could see it was, what's wrong now? Well, Butch, now that you're asking, I've got a screw and I can't get it out. So he didn't say it to me, but word got to me. He was talking to a couple of other guys. True story. And Butch says to them, what in the world would Barry do if he wasn't a pastor? In other words, in Butch's mind, there's only one thing I can do. And maybe even that's questionable, but the only thing I could possibly do would be a pastor. So I'm not sure what else I would do. There are days, have you guys ever felt this? I remember when I went through a really difficult time in my life and in ministry, I kind of longed to pump gas. Just where you just...
I've done it.
Have you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I just thought, you know what? I'd like to just not have to carry work home with me. You're going to still deal with people, but then they go. Isn't it time for you to go? And then just move on. But something like every once in a while I've thought, but that would drive me crazy as well. So I have no idea what I would do. And God knew that. That's why I'm in ministry.
To me, it sounds like you need to take Butch out to lunch or do something else with him.
There's been dinners.
When you call him, he goes, what do you want now?
Hopefully it doesn't reach that point with you and me and tech things.
Yes. Well, we're getting close, right? I'm not afraid to ask for help.
To be fair, I still need to figure out the email thing. I'm still scratching my head on that one.
Yeah, it's a bizarre. If you know why my inbox that had 80 emails that needed attention, why they're gone, we'd like to know.
I restored his deleted data and everything, and they didn't come back.
It is an unsolved mystery.
Just a day in the life of ministry, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, church, it has been good to spend this time with you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for...
Oh, hey, Adam. What you doing here?
Doing BTS.
Oh, yeah.
You told me this was 7 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, I did, didn't I? So, thanks for being here.
Guess we'll see you guys next month.